In this section, we're going to review how to multiply and divide rational numbers. Now, I say review because we have already learned how to multiply and divide fractions and decimals, and we've already learned how to multiply and divide integers, so now we just need to put everything together. The first thing we need to remember is that when you're multiplying and dividing integers, if they have the same sign, the answer is positive. So if I give you -4 times -8, the answer would be positive 32. If I give you -63 divided by -9, the answer is positive 7. On the other hand, if the signs are different, your answer is always negative. And it doesn't matter which number is bigger, it's always negative. So if I do -2 times 10, it is -20. Even though 10 is bigger and it's positive, signs are different, so it's negative. If I do -48 divided by 12, the answer is -4. So what we're going to need to do now is just review how to multiply and divide fractions and multiply and divide decimals with the negatives in there. I am going to do one of each, and then you'll be able to get to work. Let's start with -3 1/3 times -2 7/10. So remember, when you're multiplying fractions, they have to be in A over B form. So I first have to change these to improper fractions. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So you have 10/3, and the answer is negative, or that fraction's negative, times 2 times 10 is 20, plus 7 is 27. So 27/10. And that is also negative. And you notice I put that negative by the fraction bar. I'm going to go back and put it by the 10, because I think it's easiest when we put our negative with our numerators. Now, when you multiply fractions, you can simplify vertically, diagonally, but never horizontally. So let's look at our verticals. If I look at 10 and 3, there's nothing I can do there. 27 and 10, there's nothing I can do there. So I check my diagonals, and the first diagonal I'm looking at is 3 and 27, and I can simplify there. And I know that 3 goes into both of those. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into -27, -9 times. And there's nothing else that can be simplified there. Now I'm going to look at my other diagonal. There I have 10 and 10. I know that 10 goes into -10 once, and 10 goes into 10 once. So what I'm left with is -1 over 1 times -9 over 1. So I'm going to multiply across. -1 times -9 is positive 9, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And 1 times 1 is 1. So 9 over 1 equals 9, and it's positive, which you should have known from the very start, because you were taking a negative times a negative. So now let's look at division. Okay, we're going to do -1 1/5 divided by 1/2. Now, just looking at this, you should know that your answer in the end is going to end up negative, because you have a negative divided by a positive. To remind ourselves, we still have to be in A over B form. So I do 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So I have 6 over 5, and it's negative, divided by 1/2. Now, we don't ever actually divide fractions. So remember, we keep the same first number the same. We changed it to multiplication, and we take the reciprocal of the second number. People are real tempted to simplify, like in this situation over here where I just crossed out the -6 and the 2. You have to remember, you cannot simplify in division. You can only simplify in multiplication. So don't take that step too soon. So I have negative 6 over 5 times 2 over 1. I check my verticals, negative 6 and 5, nothing. 2 and 1, nothing. I check my diagonals, 5 and 2, nothing. Negative 6 and 1, nothing. So then I'm just going to multiply across. I have negative 6 times 2, which is negative 12. And 5 times 1, which is 5. I have a negative divided by a positive, so my answer is negative. 5 goes into 12 2 times, with 2 out of 5 left over. Negative 2 and 2/5 is my final answer. Okay, so let's remind ourselves how to multiply decimals. If I get 5 and 28 times negative 6/10, I notice that I'm multiplying numbers with different signs, so I know that my answer is going to be negative when I'm done. I'm going to kind of ignore the negatives when I solve this problem and then just put it in at the end. When you multiply decimals, remember, you do not need to line up the decimal like you do when you add and subtract. So it's really 5 and 28 times 0.6. All right, so 6 times 8 is 48. Carry the 4. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 1 is 31. And then the way we did this was we thought about how many numbers were after the decimal. So if I circle this, I have 3 numbers that appear after the decimal. So my answer will go 1, 2, 3 swoopies in, or my decimal will. So my final answer is 3 and 168 thousandths, not forgetting that my answer is negative. It is a huge mistake that people make, forgetting to go back and check those. Okay, and finally, we're going to do dividing decimals. Looking at this problem, I have negative 6 and 2/10 divided by negative 8 hundredths. I see that I have a negative divided by a negative, so I know that my answer is going to be positive. When I set up these decimal problems, remember you're dividing 6.2 on the inside, and then the 8 hundredths on the outside. But we do not divide by decimals, so we have to swoopy the decimal over 2 spaces to make it a whole number. And if I swoopy 2 on the outside, I have to swoopy 2 on the inside. So I swoopy 2 over here. My decimal is actually going to be there. I'm going to add a 0 in the swoopy that has nothing. And my decimal is going to go straight up in my answer there. So what I'm actually dividing is 8 into 620. So 8 goes into 6. It doesn't. 8 goes into 62 7 times. That is 58. 56. No mistake there. 7 times 8 is 56. I'm going to subtract 62 minus 56. You get 6. Bring down the 0. I'm going to multiply 8, or see how many times 8 goes into 60. Sorry, I'm struggling for a second there. That's 7. So that gives you 56 again. I'm going to subtract and get 4. Now I've reached an end to my problem. I'm going to add a 0. Notice that 0 is on the other side of the decimal. I'm going to bring that down. 8 into 40 is 5 times, and that is 40. So we are done with the problem. If you weren't done, you would continue to add zeros until it either terminated or formed a pattern. So when I look at this answer, I have 77 and 5/10. And the answer is positive because my signs were the same. Okay, you're going to practice this on your own. Good luck.